welcome back to Sharing the Love. Today we're sharing the love with the radiant, beautiful Amy. Welcome.
Hey Vanna.
Hello, welcome. To start off with, could you please describe yourself with 5 words?
I would say outgoing,
Mm-hmm.
passionate, driven or determined, loving, and weird or quirky is maybe better.
Alrighty, so it's time for our love bowl. You know the drill, just let me know when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, oops. The topic for today is limiting beliefs. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of limiting beliefs?
A lot of people struggle with this. People not feeling they're good enough kind of springs to mind, holding themselves back from achieving what they desire,
Right.
whether it's through judgment or what society deems as acceptable. I would say a lot of people hold themselves back.
Definitely, and a huge part is the holding themselves back. There's this underlying connotation of they are doing that to themselves. It's like a self-imposing thing, right? And of course, a lot of the conditioning, past experiences play a big role in that. But it's really important to understand that if we're doing that to ourselves, we can undo that as well. My next question is, can you share a specific limiting belief that you've had to overcome and how you were able to navigate that?
Well, I feel, Banner, that I've had many limiting beliefs in my lifetime. More recently, my limiting belief is becoming a coach and knowing that I have knowledge and insight that others can gain from, but fearing that I'm maybe not the best coach at times. And that is a limiting belief because I know I can serve kind of my target audience, and I know that it comes from a good place, and I want to serve others and get the best outcomes for them. But there are periods of time where I have held myself back and felt not good enough in many areas of my life, whether it's relationships, the workplace, personal goals.
Right. And how were you able to overcome those?
Inner work is needed, a lot of self-development, which I have done. I am a huge advocate for things like breath work, and just journaling is key. Something I always tell clients, the more you journal, the more you research yourself, basically. You find out about yourself.
Definitely.
And the more you know about yourself, the more you realize you are more capable than you first thought. And usually we tell these stories in our own heads.
Yes.
And the world perceives us in a different way to what we view ourselves as. And it's just having those constant reminders, reassuring yourself, actually, is this the truth, or am I telling myself a story? A super valuable tool is to journal as much as you can, find out about yourself, experience new things.
A few things jumped out in your answer. One, definitely the introspection is something required, and I don't feel like people do enough of that, of just sitting with themselves, looking inwards and realizing, okay, what are these things that are holding me back? Why are they holding me back? So that's definitely a starting point, is the self-awareness. Then you went on to talk about the constant reminder, right? And that is the work. That's where the results come in, is the constant work and the constant retention of what we are telling ourselves and what we are feeding ourselves. I believe the space in between is the challenging yourself part. And yes, it would be very uncomfortable if for a huge chunk of your life you've been telling yourself a certain story, and now all of a sudden you want to challenge that. It's not going to be as easy or a walk in the park for you or your internal world to accept that overnight. The way I see it is, I feel it's as though there's a cage, and within that cage, what we overlook is that the key is inside. Within the realm of those limiting beliefs, we have the key. Again, to my point and your point at the start, is we get to choose what we want to believe and what we don't want to believe. NLP does talk about how there are external events, and then there's a mechanism in our minds that either distorts, deletes, or generalizes information. So what that means is what reality is different than how we are perceiving reality. As you were saying, it's different how the outside world sees it versus how we see it. Again, it just takes time, it takes practice in order to gain that confidence.
Absolutely. And just the understanding that everyone's perception is different.
Yes.
We can all see the same thing and see it a completely different light.
How do you believe limiting beliefs are created?
I think they're created through, again, your own feelings towards things, your own perception of things. Also, if you've been through a certain struggle and it's a tough time in your life, that suddenly becomes your limiting belief. I know something I actually struggled with hugely during school. I was constantly put down in school for my ability in maths. I didn't feel very academic. I always thought, okay, I cannot do numbers, I cannot do maths. And that has stuck through me into adulthood, and it's definitely a limiting belief. It's almost like I push things away. And that for me is a major one, pushing it away, thinking I cannot do this. And I've told myself, because I've maybe had a bad experience and I've held on to that, and it's made me feel inside not good. Therefore, I don't want to experience it. Therefore, I don't expose myself to it.
Yes.
And I do everything in my power to avoid that kind of situation. So I think they can develop through a bad experience. They can also develop, it's mainly your feeling in your body, I think, at the time. And then that goes through to all avenues. And then you find yourself making those stories in your head.
And believing them. And to your point, it's that one experience that we internalize, and our ego wants that way to protect us. So it says, you know what, I'm gonna avoid anytime numbers come up, or I'm not good enough to do this because that's what my teacher said, or that's what my parents said, or that's what my ex said, and we really take it to heart deeply and think or believe that it's a reflection of us. But if we were at that time to just challenge it a little bit and try to look at it from a different perspective, because this is what we do essentially in our coaching, is to try to show alternative perspectives to the same experience, right? For example, someone has a phobia of dogs today because they had an experience in the past where a dog bit them. And so their whole life they grow up thinking that dogs are harmful, that they're dangerous. But truly, it was that one experience that happened. It's not that all dogs are gonna bite you, but we internalize it and make it as though that no, actually, every time a dog is gonna come near me, they're gonna bite me, and that's it. Now the ego has created dogs are bad. But this is something that's subjective. That's the difference. So we're limiting ourselves. We're making ourselves small so that we protect ourselves, essentially.
A great analogy with the dogs. I feel like as a society, we do that. We see one thing, we take it as gospel, and then we generalize it.
Right. And that's where we need to start to really shine our authenticity and look deeper into our truth and what we believe versus taking on other people's opinions and judgments and what they believe. Because you can believe something and I can believe something. There's nothing, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just different, and it's okay. We can exist in that multitude and the different contradictions and the different truths. That's fine. But at the end of the day, ultimately, at least make it aligned and true to who you are and what you truly believe, rather than just taking it from the outside. And I feel the biggest hurdle in that regard is that we're scared to speak up. We're scared to speak up because of how we might be judged. But when we let go of what others think or how others might perceive us and just tap into our own truth, the conviction, the freedom, the inner peace that we have, there's nothing like it. When it comes to limiting beliefs, what's one piece of advice that you'd give your younger self?
Oh, great question. I have actually thought about this and journaled about this a lot actually recently. And what I would tell younger Amy, firstly, it will all work out how it's meant to be.
Yes.
Secondly, have faith and trust in the universe, because what is meant for you, as cheesy as it sounds, what is meant for you will not pass you by.
Yes.
And I truly do believe that. In fact, there's been times in my life where I've thought the worst thing possible has happened. I can't see any way out of it. It sounds strange, but my worst times are actually now in hindsight some of my best times,
Yes, wow.
because what I thought was the worst thing imaginable, like I said, has completely changed who I am as an individual, and I just feel stronger and better for it. So I guess I would tell my younger self,
Yeah.
have faith, try everything, do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as it's coming from a place of love and you're not hurting anyone. Do what you want to do and just enjoy life.
Yes, live your life. Exactly. And I feel that's what limiting belief doesn't allow us to do, is to live our lives to the fullest. And one thing is, what I heard you say is the way you gain the confidence is through putting yourself out there and just trying. And really, if something you believe in and you have faith in it and you see the purpose behind it, just keep going. I realize in this life nowadays, Amy, we're trying so hard to not face any kind of difficulties in our lives. But this is the natural part of the human experience. We need to go through these things. What's the point of life if we're not going to go through hardships? I heard this reel the other day where she was saying, when you're a kid, you're trying to get to the elevator button and you can't make it and you can't make it. And that day when you can finally make the elevator button, the feeling that you get. But what if from the start you could reach the elevator button? You wouldn't have that feeling. There would not be that sweetness to life if we don't work for things because we feel like, oh my God, we could do it. We stretched ourselves. There's resilience, there's grit in that, and we made it through. So it truly is specifically those times that make us who we are. And as cheesy as it is, people need to start understanding the deeper meaning, the deeper knowing, of that truth. There is no life
Absolutely.
without these hardships.
Yeah, I agree. Even if we look at day-to-day things, going to the gym, push our body, we exert ourselves, and then we get that feeling after. We don't get that euphoric feeling from not doing and putting in the work.
Yeah.
Again, with breath work, we don't get to that desired state without putting in the work. It is about the journey. It's not usually about the destination.
Definitely. And even you'll see a lot of successful people tell you when they reach the end goal, it lasts for a few minutes. That's it. It lasts for a few minutes. But what the remembrance of the journey itself is where you get that sweetness again, right? It's in the becoming. It's not when you become, it's in the becoming of it. And what you did to get to that point is the true measure of that success, in my opinion. If limiting belief was a color, what color would it be and why?
Firstly, my happy color is yellow. So I feel like it needs to almost be the opposite of that for me personally. Probably a shade of grey, a gloomy shade of grey, not colourful, almost takes away from you, drains from you. Yeah, I would say that, because a limiting belief doesn't actually hold any power unless you allow it to. So I wouldn't say it's a dramatic, strong colour. I would say it's kind of a mellow grey, which you can easily erase and put in your bright colours.
I
That's
love
what I'd
that.
say.
I love that answer. Life is meant to be lived so fully and so colorfully. My last question on this topic is, what would be a tip that you could give our audience on how they can start to navigate or deal with their limiting beliefs and try to overcome them?
The key thing, like I said before, is just learning about yourself. And the best way to do that is journaling. I know a lot of people find writing really difficult, but if you just start somewhere, it doesn't matter what you write down, just go with the flow and remind yourself it's only you that's going to view what you have written unless you choose to share it. So it doesn't matter. There's not a right or wrong. And just write every day. Just make it a mission to write, and it will eventually fall into place. Another great way is getting on board with a coach if you're more verbal and you can vocalize your thoughts and feelings. Share things with friends. Know that you might want time on your own, or you may want time in others' company to figure out things. But the key thing is research about yourself. Learn as much as you can, because until you know the why, you're always going to be held back in life until you have that kind of why that's strong in your mind of what you want to do and why you want to do it. And I think that would really put a stop to some limiting beliefs, because there's been a few times I've written things down and I've realized halfway through, hang on, that was just a limiting belief. This was just a story I put in my head. Journaling for me is a number one key tip.
I love that. And to add to it, I do want to say, for people who do find difficulty, you can even try prompted journals. Look at Google, look at ChatGPT, whatever it is, say, give me some prompted journals so I can understand more about my limiting beliefs. You can even start with, what do I believe is my biggest limiting belief? Why do I believe that that's my limiting belief? How does it hold me back? How does it no longer serve me? I just gave you 4 journal prompts. Start there, you know what I mean? And then off the back of that, start to look at the patterns. Start looking at the themes of what's coming off on the back of that. The next part of that, as you were saying, is a lot of the times we're holding ourselves back, and I feel like there's not enough dreamers in the world anymore, because they feel like, oh, you know, there's a million people doing these. What makes me different? Or why would my dream work out? Or, oh, I'm lazy, I would never amount to that. Or, oh, I'm not committed. All, again, like you said, stories that we are telling ourselves. What does that mean? We can rewire our brains to tell ourselves different stories, and that needs that constant repetition, that constant exposure. So you can embed that, ingrain that in yourself, right? And again, we won't be able to get to that point until we do the research. I love that you use the word research. You know, that's such a different and lovely way to look at it, because we're doing so much researching of everything else outside of us. Why not get to know ourselves and then empower ourselves through that?
And just to add to that, Vanna, I feel it's key to know that you can change your idea and your why at any point that you want to. I used to be one of those people that thought, I have to follow this through, but if it's not serving you, or you've changed as an individual, as we do, I'm not the same person I was even a year ago. You can change. You don't have to stick to that. You are the director and the writer of your own story. You can make that change whenever you want to.
Yes. And to that is your different versions of yourself every time. So maybe a past version's why was true and aligned to her, but today you're a different version and you want to change that why, and that's okay. Nelson Mandela became Nelson Mandela at 72. Oprah did what she was doing when she was turning into her 30s. Like these, you know, there's never a time limit. It's your own pace, your own race, your own lane. Stick to that and you'll be good.
And I love that, Banner, that you touched on age there. Such a limiting belief of people. It's been one of mine as well, that you get to that age, you're in your 30s and you think, I'm running out of time, I can't do this. And it's so common in women to think, especially in women, that the time's ticking to achieve certain goals. So I love that you touched on age and that people in their later life are still achieving.
What was your biggest takeaway from our conversation today?
Wow, can I say everything?
Of course.
We are the ones that can make change to our own lives. Yes. We just need to know about the tools and implement them. And then we are in the driving seat. So that I feel like that's my biggest takeaway, that limiting beliefs don't hold any power unless we give it the power.
Yes. And we are in the driver's seat of our lives, as you were saying. But most of the time with these limiting beliefs, we allow fear to be in the seat, or we allow ego to be in the seat. But we can regain that by figuring out what's going on, where's the car, who's driving it, who do I need to talk to, with compassion, to let them know, thank you for protecting me all these years. Now I know there's someone who has the maturity, who has the experience, who has the wisdom to guide us all together as a family and have that inner harmony inside. It's okay. It's okay that you have these limiting beliefs, but it's time to now challenge them and create empowering beliefs instead. Where can our audience connect with you?
They can connect with me through my Instagram page, Amy Martens Coaching.
Definitely, everyone needs to go follow and connect with this wonderful human being. Everything that she puts out is true gold because it comes from the soul. She's not trying to conform to anyone's limitations. She's trying to empower you. She's here with a voice of truth to let you know that you can and you will and you are. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what was the most valuable thing that you gained out of this, and we'll see you again in our next episode.